Oh, by the way, so now, so like tomorrow is going to be interesting day for American history. I guess probably even interesting day for the and for world history. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, now let's just see the source of saving, right? So that's we already look at, right? So basically, so we have a big big chart to explain different source of saving. You have saving, so coming from domestic, coming from foreign. For domestic, you have government and the private. For government, you have government budgetary. Think about central government or state government. And then we have government enterprise. Think about Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? And then so you have private saving. Okay, let me see. So private saving, yeah. So you have corporate company. So or you have households, right? And you have foreign saving. And as foreign saving also you have So you have foreign saving. You have government and private. Okay. Okay, so you have SFO, like official, like think about government, or SFP private. And SFP private is foreign private, including foreign private in terms of debt. And then so you have foreign private in terms of equity. All right, so that just gives you a roadmap regarding to the saving. Okay. And so last class, we have already explained the importance of saving.
Could you say that again?
Sorry, that was my Siri.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, that was my Siri going off.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right. So where we are. Yeah. So this is for saving, right? So then, did that miss anything? We just look at the slides. Okay. So that's it. And here, so this foreign officials, so largely this is for foreign aid. Okay. Foreign aid from the government or from international agencies. Think about the World Bank. Okay. So that's just give you a big picture for the determination of saving, right? Okay. So we have seen, yeah. So we start with private saving, right? So we have seen stylized facts regarding to household saving, and we have seen a few economic theory that I was trying to explain the determination of private saving, right? So this slide as facts just give us a sense how private saving behaves in the real world. It may differ from country to country. Particularly, it may differ from rich country versus developing country. Okay, so those facts has motivated economists to propose different theory to explain those phenomena. So start with Keynesian, right? So Keynesian had this absolute income hypothesis. Essentially says, so households are going to save a fraction of their income, right? So this is the first theory. So that has been used for principle macro. Okay. The second theory says, so essentially there's like habit formation. Okay. So your current consumption, but that just implies your current saving. It's going to depend on not only your current income, also it's going to depend on your past behavior. Right, so here this is your past saving, past consumption. Okay? Or in some sense, your past behavior. Okay? And so sometimes we call it habit formation. You have this spending habit in the past. So that is going to have impact on your current consumption behavior. Right. The third one we explained is called permanent income hypothesis. Essentially, your saving behavior, consumption behavior, depending on the nature of your income shock. There are two types of income shock. One is a permanent. Think about you get a pay raise, right? Or think about you get a degree and then so you find a better job. So this income change is going to be permanent. It's going to live with you for the rest of your career. The other type of income shock is transitory, right? Think about you won some lottery, or you get a tax rebate from the government, right? So this transitory income, so it's going to have less profound impact on your behavior because you know, so this is going to happen one time. But a permanent income is going to permanently change your behavior, right? So that is the third theory explains of the determination of saving. And so your saving behavior is going to depend on the type of income shock you receive. Right. And the last one is called clause theory. So it's going to, so here is for aggregate saving, right? So this aggregate saving including two clauses in the economy. One is worker, the other is property income or the capitalist, right? So the worker and the capitalist, so they are different in terms of their saving propensity. And then so their difference in saving propensity largely coming from their income source. For worker, most of the income coming from labor, right? And for capitalists, their income largely coming from property income. Think about capital. Think about profit by owning a firm or business. Think about rent, okay, for the land or for the building they own. All right. So that can potentially explain the saving rate difference across income level. Also can be used to explain saving behavior difference across country in terms of the level of development, right? Because in at a different level of development, so those countries may have different structure of population in terms of the fraction of worker versus the fraction of capitalists, right? And also maybe, so this can be used to look at the same economy, but different location or different subgroup. And particularly in the developing country, to look at rural versus urban. Okay? In the rural area, again, so in developing country, this is different from developed country. So in the United States, a farmer, so they may have a lot of capital. But in the developing country, the farmer, most of them are hand to mouth. Okay? What hand to mouth means? So the hand to mouth means, so basically they just work, they get income, and the income is going to feed for them or their family. So this is what I said, hand to mouth. They are going to have very little saving. It's not they don't want to save, it's because their income is so little, so they can barely feed themselves. Okay, so this is called hand to mouth, right? And so that can also, again, so this clause theory can maybe can potentially explain inside the same economy, but depending on where you live, okay, most in terms of geographic location and in terms of the distribution of the economy. So you're going to have different saving behavior, right? So those are the four theories. Now we are going to look at corporate saving. Okay, so again, this is for private saving. Right, so we have looked at households. Okay. Now we look at corporate or business. Okay. So corporate saving as of total income is relatively small. In the industrial economy, so in the United States, is 5%. In developing country, it can be even smaller. And because this is largely because the corporate sector is small. And here, so you may want to pay attention. So in developing country, in terms of corporate sector or in terms of business sector, so typically people differentiate between formal sector versus informal. And this problem is even more pronounced in developing country because of the tracking system or because of the legal system is not well established. Okay, what's the difference? Formal sector essentially is a business that's been registered with the government, okay, subject to regulation, subject to tax collection. What is the informal sector? They think about a farmer, they have their own business. Not really their own business. They may just have a few chickens or hens. And then, so they have some eggs. They're going to sell the eggs to their neighbors or sell to whoever passes by, right? So they make very little income. Okay? But for them, so those are the main income resource they can find. Okay? So that's called informal sector. So in that sense, so the corporate sector is pretty small in developing country, and the saving is also very low. Okay. Now, so here, so we have finished the discussion for private, right? So now we can look at foreign saving. For the government saving, so it's probably in the later slide or in next chapter, right? So now we look at foreign saving. Okay. First, let's look at foreign private investment. So just remember, so saving foreign, so that includes foreign official, foreign private, right? And then foreign private includes debt financed versus equity financed, right? Now let's start with foreign private investment. Okay, so that just falls into this category, right? And then depending on the form of private investment, so it may be either here or here. Okay, now first is portfolio investment. So that's a purchase of stocks, bond, but not involving controlling ownership. Okay, so what is example? This is just think about an American citizen or an American mutual fund or pension fund. So they decide to invest in emerging market. Okay, what is the emerging market? So that's including, so those are some developing countries, but they are doing very well. They are having high growth rate. Right, so these emerging countries, including China, including Argentina, right? So maybe including, I don't know, so where do you include? So maybe South Africa. Okay, so here I just list 3 in different regions of the world, right? So this American company or this American individual or American institute, so they want to invest in emerging market, right? And so they invest, but essentially they just purchase stocks in this market, or they purchase bonds issued by the company in those market. They are not interested in controlling the company. They only want to participate in their stock market or in their financial market, right? And why they want to do that is because of those emerging market, they may enjoy higher rate of return. Okay, higher rate of return. Okay, so why they may have higher rate of return? So that is linked to the earlier discussion we have, like solo growth model, right? A poor country, typically they have high rate of return. Also, this is going to link to the discussion today's group is going to talk about growing like China. Right? So China, so they experiencing high growth rate in terms of their GDP, but at the same time, paradoxically, they also, or very positively to us, is at the same time, Chinese economy is delivering a higher rate of return. Because the solo growth model says poor country is going to deliver a high rate of return due to the decrease in marginal return to capital. But as they grow, so this rate of return will decline. But in China, it seems like, so this rate of return did not decline. Now, so then so today's class, today's group is going to discuss that paper. But okay, so the story behind this phenomenon partially explains why those advanced economies, they want to invest in emerging market. Because emerging market, so they are going to deliver high rate of return. Right? And that's a link back to what we're discussing now. So that is a form of portfolio investment. Okay? So essentially, American or British or Western European company, they invest in emerging market. So this is called portfolio investment. Okay? It was fairly small back in 1990. Okay? Now it's getting bigger and bigger. Civic example. So Chinese government recently relaxed the regulation. They allows foreigner to invest in their domestic stock market. It wasn't the case, but why is that? So largely because the government and most of those developing countries, they were worried the foreign capital, the foreign inflow of capital may lead to some shocks to the economy, right? Also, it may affect their capital structure, okay? Or may affect the way how they manage their economy. So they took a very precautionary step. So their market wasn't open to the outside world until recently, right? So this is a portfolio investment. Okay? And here, so you can see the size of portfolio investment in different countries. Okay? And say, for example, you look at China, it's just largely negative. What that means? It means instead, so foreigners invest in their economy. So they invest to the rest of the world, right? But this things has been reversed recently. Okay. The second foreign signal, foreign investing is called FDI. So foreign direct investment. Okay. So it can be very big and it's increasing. But there was a slowing down during the recent financial crisis, which was 29 and 2010. Okay. But recently it started to pick up. Okay. And so this slide just show you the size of foreign direct investment. So if you select a country, okay, so here we should look at China, right? So you can see, so there's steady increase after 2010. right? In a few years, it almost double. That is from here to here, almost double. All right. So the third form of foreign investment is called a commercial bank lending. So this commercial bank will lend to government or is going to lend to business. But just make sure you see the difference. This is a commercial bank. Okay? Think about what's the Goldman Sachs. I think it's considered as part of this commercial bank lending. JP Morgan. All right. So they just lend to the government in the developing country or a business in developing country. Right. So this is different from lending made by World Bank. Okay? So World Bank is not a commercial bank, right? Or other example in this group, like World Bank includes intercontinental, I think intercontinental, Latin American bank, some name, the name like that. So I forgot. So let me see what's the name. Just bear with me a second. Let me find out the name for that agency. Let me go to Google to find the name. What's the name? Latin. Okay, so this is called Inter-American Development Bank. Right? So that's another example. So Inter-American Development Bank, right? And further, maybe have an example like African Development Bank. Okay, so those are different from commercial bank. So we may pick up that later. Okay, so this is a third foreign investment. The last one is called export credit. Okay, the example include GE. So GE, the company made a lot of medical device, like CT scanner. Okay, it can be very expensive. One unit can easily cost 10 million US dollar, right? And then so GE, so when they export their products, they take into account so those local hospital they cannot afford. What they're gonna do is so GE have their own credit branch, so they extend the credit to the local hospital in developing country they are serving, right? And then so this credit will allow those hospitals to purchase or to use their equipment on credit, right? So that's the fourth type of foreign private investments, okay, largely made to developing country. Okay. So now we are going to look at the second big group in terms of foreign saving. Okay, because now we are looking at foreign saving. We just look at private investment made by foreigner. Now we are going to look at investment, or equivalent saving made by multinational corporations. Okay, so these multinational corporations includes, say for example, Microsoft, or think about the car manufacturer, or think about food processing company. Right? So they have factories, they have business branch all around the world. Right? So they may to do investment or saving decision across their branch located all around the world. All right. Oh, by the way, so here, so those are the examples of multinational corporations. Right. For those corporations, their main objective are profit opportunity. Okay. So for them, so they care less about some social issue or macroeconomic issue, say for example, poverty, inequality, unemployment, or pollution, or climate issue traditionally, right? So they care less about. But certainly, so this has been changed recently, right? So people start to aware of this, right? Or the investors. So these investors who invest in these multinational corporations, think about you and me, think about ourselves, right? So when you make a decision, do you want to invest in Sony, or do you want to invest in Ford, or do you want to invest in Apple? So you may care about how Apple make their profit, how Sony make their profit. You may think about how Sony's or Apple's business affect local population. Say, for example, Apple. So they have outsourced their assembly line to a Chinese firm, right? So there are lots of discussion. So the working condition in those factories is very concerning. So that may force Apple to think about their strategy. And that's furthermore, that's going to lead to Apple to press down their contractors who assemble their iPhones, right? But traditionally, multinational, for them, so their decision largely relies on profit opportunity. They concern less about those social issues until recently, right? Okay, so this is multinational. Now we can look at the policies towards multinationals. But here, those are the policy from recipient company, meaning, so those are the policy stand taken by the government who host those multinational companies. Right? Just say, for example, Apple. So they have an assembly line in Vietnam or in China or Malaysia. Okay? Or Sony has an assembly line in South Asian country. And then, so those countries, their government had their policy towards their business conduct by those multinational corporations. Okay? So those concerns are listed as follows. First, so the government has performance requirements. Okay? So they may require, or they may prefer those multinationals use local materials, and they may want them to import only most advanced technology. So both measure, so here and here, both is going to promote local economy. So if they import most advanced technology, hopefully that's going to push their production possibility frontier, right? Or hopefully that's going to have some spillover effect, right? So hopefully the rest of the economy can learn from those multinational corporations, right? And so these multinational corporations also require to use local material. So that's going to help the rest of the economy. So it brings additional demand. So this is the first policy. And second, so typically they may require joint venture, right? So they require multinational to sell the controlling share to local partner, which is 51%, so that the policy or the decision for this joint venture will be made or will be controlled by locals. So that just makes sure that they represent the local population's interests. Right, so that's second policy. The third, they may have some restriction on profit repatriation. Right? For example, Brazil limit profit sent by a firm to a parent to 10%. The hope is so the multinational corporations, they keep their profit inside the recipient country. So this profit reside in this recipient country will boost up saving investment in recipient country. So that's going to further advance their economic growth. Right? So that's kind of a virtual cycle. Okay. No, not solutions. So this is a good feedback, right? So this is a restriction, and just give you a sense how big and how important that. So you may want to remind yourself the first of couple of policy President Trump did when he enters the office back in 2017. He has a regulation or requirement to ask American multinational companies to repatriate their money back to the United States, otherwise subject to some regulatory what's that? So yeah, they may subject some regulatory punishment or whatever or similar, right? So why President Trump want to do that is by asking those companies repatriate their profit earning outside of the United States, so they can boost up domestic demand, boost up domestic saving and investment, so that it can bring more jobs or bring higher economic growth, right? But this is also explained. So this is just other way to look at. So why the developing country or the recipient country wants the multinational corporations, or they require them to, so they impose some restriction on profit repatriation. Right. So the last one is tax policy. Okay. So this recipient country or the host country for multinational corporations may limit the tax holiday. So what is tax holiday? So this is the strategy used by developing country government to attract multinational corporations to set up business in their home country. Right? So tax holiday essentially just says, if you open your business in my country, so you are going to enjoy some favorable tax treatment. Right? Say, for example, in China, before 2008, to attract foreign investment, so they offer 2 years tax exemption. Okay? To give you a sense, in American, so corporate tax is around between 15 and 20%. So if a company open a branch or move their business to China, meaning they are going to save this between 15 to 20% of tax for 2 years. And furthermore, they have 3 years tax reduction. And pay tax in 5th year if profit are positive. Right? So you can see, so that can be very attractive for multinational companies who face higher tax rate in their home country. Okay. So there are trade-offs in terms of attracting multinational companies, corporations into less developed country or emerging country or developing country, okay, or those countries that we are interested in. So there are benefit and the cost. The benefit includes the following: consumer will gain because of better quality and larger quantity of products, right? Because this multinational company, most of them coming from advanced economy, so they can produce high quality products and in a mass amount, or they can produce this way more efficient. So that's going to benefit local consumer, right? And the government will also benefit by receiving more tax. And some students may be wondering, so isn't that the government offer tax holiday to them? Yes, so it is true in the short run. So this tax holiday will reduce tax, but in the mid-term and the long term, okay? So the open up of their market, or this multinational corporation enters their market, eventually it's going to bring more tax revenue, because eventually these multinational corporations will pay tax, will create jobs. Right? And the third, as you can see, so the policy toward those multinational corporations requires they import most advanced technology. So in that sense, there's a spillover. So in that sense, domestic firms will get technological know-how, right? And then so we have a bunch of other benefits. So including increased employment because they create jobs, okay? And the transfer of capital. Right? So these multinational corporations need to set up their business, set up their factories, right? And so increase managerial capacity, right? Because so this multinational, they have more sophisticated corporate structure. So they have more dedicated management structure or management know-how, right? So that's going to spill over to local business, because the local business, they can learn from those multinational corporations, right? And so the enters of these multinational corporations also allows local business to access to world markets. Right? So here's how. Just again, so you use Apple as the example. Now, if Apple decides to have a factory or assembly line open in China or in Vietnam, okay? And then so they must need to purchase some components. So those components may be purchased in local business, right? And then suddenly this local business, they can open their door to the world market through Apple's products, right? Because eventually Apple's product is going to be sold worldwide, right? Okay, so to give you a sense, the multinational corporations, they control 70% of world trade. So in that sense, I just give you an idea. So how these multinational corporations are going to benefit local business to access world market, either directly or indirectly. Directly, just through the multinational corporation to purchase the components or intermediate goods from local business. So this directly, or indirectly, because this local business had such experience, and then they build up their assembly line or build up their capacity to provide material, provide intermediate goods for multinational corporations. So that allows them to gain competitiveness in international market. So they may just sell their product to third party, right? So that's the benefit. But there are arguments against multinational corporations, okay? Including A, it might widen wage differentials. Okay, so because of those multinational corporations, they have better technology, so they have better managerial ability. So in general, so they pay higher wage, right? Because they are more efficient. Okay, and then so their higher wage is going to artificially widen the wage gap in the recipient countries' labor market. Okay, so that's going to lead to income inequality. Okay. And secondly, so these multinational corporations, so they may use capital intensive technology. So these capital intensive technology may not be an ideal way to promote economic growth. So this is what we can learn from Howard Doma model, right? So if you move towards more capital intensive technology, so your growth rate is going to slow it down, right? So in that sense, this may not be a good thing for developing country, but over time, so this capital intensive technology will bring you higher TFP. So eventually that's going to bring you prosperity, but in short term and the midterm, it may slow down your economic growth. And the third argument against multinational corporations lies to the fact that those corporations may influence government policy in the direction unfavorable to development. Okay, includes tax rebates or the tax policy to them, or in terms of cheap service, or maybe in terms of some policy towards environmental issue, right? So you probably heard from news, there are a lot of argument against those food processing company. They has been deforested the Amazon jungle, right? So those are bad examples regarding to multinational corporations. They may have negative impact on emerging country or on developing country. All right, so let's take a 10 minutes break and then we continue our discussion for this chapter. Right.